The 2010s were undeniably an amazing decade for football. Superstars like Tom Brady, Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson, and Calvin Johnson were continuously dominant. However, you could very well consider this as the peak for running back greatness. Adrian Peterson, LaShawn McCoy, Marshawn Lynch, Frank Gore, and Jamal Charles were just a few of the best at the position during this timeline, all of which had several 1,000-yard seasons during this era. But even if you take all these names out of the question, the 2010s were still filled with elite running backs. Those are just the big names. Here are 5 great running backs from the 2010s that you may have forgotten about. Starting off the list strong, we have one of the most consistent backs that will be featured in today's video. Arian Foster played 7 seasons in the NFL, primarily with the Houston Texans. After going undrafted in 2009, the Texans picked Foster up, knowing the potential was there. In 2007, Foster would rush for over 1,000 yards with 12 touchdowns for Tennessee. This was following a very mediocre first 2 collegiate seasons. It was such a good season that Foster was immediately put onto the NFL draft boards and given a second-round grading. In 2008, all eyes were on the back as he was entering his senior season and hoping to rise his draft stock to round 1. However, it would be the opposite, as things didn't go so well, and he would score just once in 2008 and rush for less than 600 yards. Foster would sign with the Texans after going undrafted, and he had the odds stacked against him. But he would beat them all. In just his second season, Foster went off, rushing for over 1,600 yards, 16 rushing touchdowns, and 2 more in the receiving game. Despite injuries, Foster would record 3 more 1,000-yard seasons, 2 first-team All-Pro nods, and 4 Pro Bowls. He was a true game changer who does not get the respect that he most certainly earned. Although not as prolific as Foster, Lamar Miller was another great Texans back. A 4th-round pick by Miami, Miller would spend just 4 seasons as a Dolphin. However, he would pick up his first of 2 1,000-yard seasons in the teal. In the offseason of 2016, Miller was picked up by Houston on a 4-year deal worth $26 million. Replacing none other than Arian Foster as the two switched teams from Houston to Miami. Miller would rush for over 1,000 yards again in his first year in the Lone Star State. It was another career that was cut far too short by injuries, as Lamar Miller is now out of the NFL at just 31 years old. Darren McFadden was so much fun to watch. A college legend, 4th overall pick, and one of the only guys on this list that didn't shatter expectations. Just 2 1,000-yard seasons was honestly a disappointment for a player of his caliber. But once again, injuries were an issue, playing in 16 games just twice over a 9-year career. It isn't talked about enough in the great what-if scenarios as far as the NFL goes. What if Darren McFadden stayed healthy? A college Hall of Famer, the runner-up for the Heisman twice in as many years, over 4,500 yards in 3 seasons, and forever one of the greatest Razorbacks of all time. Sadly, those numbers were not able to translate to his NFL career with the Raiders and the Cowboys. And unfortunately, the inability to stay healthy forced him out of the NFL as well, far too early. The person that inspired this video was Doug Martin.
Your nickname?
Oh man, I don't even want to say it.
Why?
Muscle hamster.
All right, please explain.
Explain?
Yeah. What does that mean?
The muscle hamster is basically, it means a person of small stature who is very well built, basically. So that they decided to give me that name.
When I was young, he was one of my favorites to watch each and every week. Honestly, I remember his rookie season very well. Here is his story. The 31st overall pick of the 2012 NFL Draft, a 1,000-yard season, several franchise records for the Buccaneers, and a Pro Bowl were included in Martin's rookie season. A career-high 11 rushing touchdowns went along with it, and he looked to be the running back of the future for the Bucs. The first 2 games of his second season went well for Doug Martin as well, including a game where he rushed for 144 yards against the Saints in Week 2. But Martin would end up on IR after just 6 games, finishing just shy of 500 yards, and he was well on his way to another Pro Bowl appearance and likely another 1,000-yard rushing year. 2015 was not only Martin's last 1,000-yard season, but it was the last that he was able to start in all of 16 games. Injuries pestered Martin throughout his tenure with the Bucs. Luckily for him, Tampa gave him the bank. After a strong season, he signed for 5 years worth $35 million. However, things would change quickly. Martin had a positive drug test, faced a suspension, checked into rehab, and was cut by the Buccaneers the next season. He would come back and finish his career with a strong season with the Raiders before getting cut again in 2019, a year before his contract with the Bucs would have expired. To close out this list, I have one of the most underrated running backs in recent NFL history. In my opinion, during the 2010s, it didn't get much better than Matt Forte. 5 1,000-yard seasons, 4 800-plus seasons in a career that spanned 10 years. And that's just rushing. In his career, Forte would also add over 4,600 receiving yards, including 6 seasons with over 400 out of the backfield. You could say that consistency was just his forte. Eight years with the Bears. He is one of the greatest players to ever put that uniform on, and that's incredible to say. Ranked 34th on the all-time greats of that franchise, number 22 was just so good. In his rookie year, Forte earned the starting job, beating out Adrian Peterson, a Vikings fan's worst nightmare. It would lead to 8 years of starting each and every game that he played in for the Bears. Remarkably, Forte would make only 2 Pro Bowls in his career. Forte set the following franchise records for the Bears. Most rush attempts by a rookie in a single season with 316, most receptions in a rookie season with 63, most yards from scrimmage in a rookie season with 1,715, most receptions in a postseason game with 10 on January 23rd of 2011 in the NFC Championship against the Green Bay Packers. The final one is games with at least 3 touchdowns in a season, as he had 2 in 2013. That is tied with Gale Sayers, Walter Payton, and Neil Anderson for a franchise record for a Bears player. He would finish his career with the Jets, rushing for over 1,000 yards in 2 seasons in green. Forte will always be an elite player in my eyes, and one that deserves so much more recognition. All of these players have a common factor, and that is a what-if scenario. What if Doug Martin continued to play at a high level for the Buccaneers? What if Darren McFadden reached his ceiling? What if Lamar Miller and Arian Foster stayed healthy? And what if Matt Forte didn't play in an era with so many other elite running backs? Could we have been talking about the 5 halfbacks that I mentioned at the start of this video as the forgotten guys? That's what football is, and it'll always be that way. We looked at 5 great running backs from the 2010s decade today and remembered just why they aren't remembered. All of these guys deserve more respect, whether it's for what they did in the NFL or from the records that they set in college. If you want to see a part 2 of this video, just let me know in the comments and like the video on YouTube. I currently have a piece of paper in front of me with over 10 more names from this era that you may have forgotten at the running back position, and I can go back to the 2000s, to the 90s, to the 80s, and even look at some of the other positions such as receiver, tight end, and maybe even quarterback. So let me know. I think that this is a fun type of video. These are some of the guys that I grew up watching that were dominating the game when I started to get into football, and I'll forever be grateful for just how big of an impact they had on the game and the league. So thank you guys for watching. Like I said, part 2, like and subscribe. I'll see you guys all next time. Goodbye.